I managed to, construction needs a facelift. So I decided to use, obviously, where my background, which is in manufacturing, and my qualifications, which is in marketing and strategy. And I merged the both, and now we create pretty pictures in construction.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Dimakatso, you are a legal professional. How and what made you start Bophelo Contract? I'm just getting ourselves, ready to hit the ground.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Lerato. And thank you so much to everyone who's so patient with us.
Yes,
this network is not favorable today. I don't know what's happening, but I believe that something great is about to happen and come out of this session. So I started Bophelo Contract because as a legal person, I've come across many people who were in dire need of interpretation, especially in terms of contracts. They would enter into contracts where they did not even understand what they were entering into. It was very difficult for them to maneuver through their business life, their careers, social life, whatever context of life. Everything starts and ends with a contract. Hence, I founded Bophelo Contract to assist people in that regard.
I know. I mean, that for me was very catchy. I'm like, oh, Bophelo Contract. I know. And everything else actually is about how you contract, what you need to do, what you need to know, and which takes us now into the conversation. I'm going to look here because I made a bit of my notes on my laptop, so don't mind me looking at my screen. So guys, let's talk about construction. Construction has a lot of certifications, and most people know NHBRC, CIDB, etc. Right? So for one to start a construction company, is it really necessary to be part of CIDB? And I know for private sector, someone who's in procurement, who has worked for both private and public sector, it depends what the requirements are when you are tendering for that project, but it is obviously adding value when you have it. So legalistically, I suppose for you, Dimakatso, what are the issues that one needs to make sure that they don't run into if they happen not to be on CIDB, or maybe they are there but they're not really doing what they signed up for? What can you share more about that?
Okay, Lerato. So what needs to happen now for somebody who is going solo, having a CK and starting out as a small business, having a construction company, what they need to do and need to understand is that they need to first register with the NHBRC. That is compulsory. Well, what happens if parties find themselves without registering with the NHBRC, then they do not have a protective body over them that will regulate the structures and the kind of tenders that you want to apply for. So it will be very difficult for you to get into the business world without you having affiliated with the national body, which is regulating the whole building industry. So with CIDB, it's a different issue because now you need a grading. With the CIDB, you deal with a grading. That means you need to have acquired certain types of work with a threshold, maybe for instance, a 3 million, 4 million type of jobs to get a first grading. Then you get promoted to the second grading, to the third, and so forth and so forth. But for startups, it is recommended that everyone must be registered with the NHBRC. It is compulsory and it's non-negotiable.
That's true. And CIDB, it doesn't cover the scope for NHBRC. I know it's outside of that scope.
Yeah, it's outside.
It is outside of that scope, right? So now let's chat on to, before we get into the legalities of the things, let's chat around finding tenders. This is the biggest question. How do people find opportunities? How do people find tenders? What are the options? What are the other avenues? Tell us.
I mean, like you have like your Google avenues, which is your e-tenders, your Green Gazette, your SA tenders, your DTI, and then obviously, like with me, what I realize is that because those avenues, they just give you so like a gush of information, and sometimes it's so hard for you to kind of sort out or sift through to kind of find the tenders that are correct for you. So I've kind of I'm an ambassador of using platforms that are able to sift out information for you, that are able to give you notifications, especially because I'm a distributor, right? So I need to be on site. I need to know about the project. I need to be on site, on time. Like I need to be on the ball. I need to know who's doing what, who's the site agent, who's that. So when you are not just relying on just a tender bill, and you actually have a portal that you are using that's going to notify you, give you that relevant information, I always say that is the way to go. Yes, there are paid platforms, but I think in terms of just investing in your business and also being prepared, because it also gives you the different stages of the project. So I would highly recommend that. So we've got your e-tenders, you've got your Green Gazette, you get it from all of that. But if you want to take it to the next level and get that crust information, I would suggest things like Leads to Business. It really helps.
That's true. I mean, anything that is subscription based, it does have a lot of value add versus the free stuff, right? So if you are going to go into at least making sure that you subscribe to some of these niche private owned, that filters, you know, things that are necessary and focuses on, you know, probability of someone really growing and getting themselves into there, it's a good opportunity, right? I know the easy way is to go through CSD, the easy way is to go through Tenders SA. You know, think about it, right? How many people really go for that? That's the first thing. So if you are going to go in for e-tenders, which is it's a good thing to do, but just think competition is high. And if competition is high, how are you branding yourself then to come out differently? Which then I want to touch on that. Construction is one of those industries where I think, I mean, I can just resign and open a construction company. Do I need the relevant skills? Do I need the relevant skills to start one? And how do I brand myself as such to be different, you know?
It depends. It depends on how you want to go about it. I think the one thing with construction, and I'm so glad that you say this, because you can just resign today and you can just be a level 1, and you think, you know what, I'm gonna get a Gucci belt and it's gonna spin and I'm gonna be a tenderpreneur. It doesn't work like that. You know, like all the established companies within construction, and that's I think, and that's they don't really share that information. And with it's just like
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, okay. She's back.
Yeah,
She's back.
Someone decided to dial me, and I don't know why that people are dialing me during having such a nice conversation. Yeah, anyway, yes. Okay, I did miss a part of it, but did you manage to cover the whole answer of the question?
Yeah. The thing is, can we find out if people heard me at least? Or should I start all over again? Can we
maybe
guys, hear me and my answer?
Yes, I think everyone heard you, except for Lerato, because she was buffering in the background. But I think for everyone, we captured and grasped everything that you just said.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine. And now let's talk about the strategies to winning bids. Okay. When I'm in procurement, I also get this a lot. Strategies for winning bids. You have now completed a tender document. You now want to win this tender, obviously. That's the intention. So what is it that you're looking for? I'll speak from a procurement perspective, right? The first thing is, did you do completion? We're looking at tender completion, right? Is the document completed as it was intended and sent? Nothing missing, okay? That's the first thing. People sometimes rush and miss small things. And I would say that you must do quality assurance, which is the very important thing. And secondly, this goes back into pricing and budgets and all of that. pricing is one of the important aspects of evaluating a tender. It's not the only thing we look for. Sometimes you get right, but that's not the only thing that will qualify you. Okay, so now when it gets to pricing, there's also an issue of what is the percentage that is allowed for me to put a markup. You know, markup is another conversation for another day, right? But markup, guys, you're not there to be a million, make millions in one day, right? No Rome was built in one day. So you have to firstly get yourself into the business, understand your clients, understand the value chain, you know. So look into at least, I would advise, at least work around 15 to 20% markup. Depends also what product at the time they're doing. If you're doing really supply in construction, you must know there's a lot of people that are in there. And now you can put around 10 to 15%. But if you really become lucky, you can go for 20, 25%, but I've seen it most that an average markup, especially in private sector, 20%. If you can go below that, even better, right? So if you get the pricing right and you get your commercials and all the, you know, documents, compliances correctly, you are then in a at least better chance to be shortlisted. You know, yeah, at least be shortlisted. Then I just want to talk on, this is where maybe you can come in again, Pili. What then makes you stand out is the things that makes you stand out. What approach are you using? What project methodology are you proposing? You know, then
I always tell the people, like I always tell my clients, winning is not the prize. You know, like I know it sounds, oh no, but we all want to win, but winning is not the prize. Because you can win and make a 2% margin or a 2% markup, you know? So you can't, if you're saying that you want to go into tenders because you want to win, then you don't really understand the process. I say, spend more time in the process and get the compliance right, get the pricing right, because even with pricing, because obviously with me as a distributor and a supplier, price is king for me. Like price would, regardless of my level 1, say DP or whatever, like price will always be a determining factor for me. So, but also when we also look at ourselves as brands in construction, you also need to understand that there's a strategy even with pricing, the way that you enter the market. Are you going into a high, low barrier market? Are you really going into, is it really price sensitive? The things that you are supplying, is it really price sensitive? Is it a niche product? So there are strategies that you have to kind of put in to the way that you price, depending on, or if you want to capture the mass audience, like it depends on how you want to enter it. You just want to come in and enter the markets, just, disrupt everything? Do you want to come in and specialize in niche? Do you want to come in and just be something that's different and your differentiation? So it really, besides just the bottom line, the compliance and everything else, I think as we also need to look into just, okay, cool, XYZ construction, what is it that you are trying to do, and what is it that you are trying to communicate even in your pricing strategy? Because we don't also just look at just just in public, because a lot of people think about price and they think, oh no, tenders public, but you also need to think about just private and growing brands. So think about all of these things, and they kind of just connect into how you are going to grow and price
and balancing the effect. You have to also balance. You can't have one set of clients. You need to have balance your spread your wings, basically, right?
While you are still being competitive also. So we can't also not mention that, because you also have to be competitive, otherwise you'll never get jobs.
That's true. No, that's true. That's true. So let's hop on now. Let's say I have tendered and I won the bid, and I realize that, listen, I need to joint venture, which is very common also in construction. So if you are going to go into joint ventures and construction, can you advise Dimakatso, what is the benefit of JVing, and how should people joint venture, and what do they do if the joint venture has gone sour?
Yes, Lerato, I think this is very important, and I think everyone should take note. As much as joint ventures seem and look easy, that I've won a tender and I can actually now go into a joint JV with somebody else. But now here comes the the nitty-gritties that we must look at before somebody decides that they want to get into a JV. And it's very important that you must issue out the risk associated with getting into a JV with that particular brand or company or individual. Because firstly, do they have the financial capability to get into a JV in order to fulfill the requirements as specified by that tender? Are you able to, with the party that you have intended, will you do the job to the fulfillment of the requirements as are required? Secondly, what are is the company that you're entering into a JV with in good standing, with all the regulatory compliance that is required for you to tender? So it's okay.
How do you
We're
check
excited.
good standing?
Yes, we have to. For anybody who's registered under the CIDB and under the NHBRC must have a letter of good standing. So it's very important that you also do your due diligence with the party that you're entering into a JV with to ensure that they are in good standing in terms of their tax compliance, their BE compliance, their COIDA compliance. We talk about a whole lot of regulatory compliance that is required before people can actually consider getting into a JV. Also bearing in mind that a JV, you share in the profits and you also share in the losses. So that means if we go into a loss, we all lose. And if we go into a profit, we all gain profit margins. So people must not get into the whole profit. It's going to be profitable and forgetting the risk that is associated with entering into a JV. For an example, if you enter into a party, or maybe with a company that is actually being investigated for fraud, and you did not do your due diligence, and now you've won the tender, you've entered, you've signed a JV contract, and the contract specifically states that you can only come out of that contract only in the circumstance of a breach, none other than anything. So if there's no breach, you can't get out of that JV. So it's important that you find a legal professional that is going to draft your contract in such a way that if along the way...
Are we losing Dimakatso, or is it just me?
Hello guys, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yes.
And someone just
wrap
asked,
up.
while you are on the topic, someone just asked the difference between a JV and a subcontract. We'll get into subcontracting, but just because we're here, can you just address that, the difference between a JV and a subcontract?
Okay, so a JV, we are actually partnering. We are in a 50-50 or in a certain percentage partnering into the certain tender to do it at once. So subcontracting, that means I'm awarded the tender as Dimakatso, and then as the main contractor, I can subcontract some of the jobs or job specs that is part of the whole process. If we are building a hotel, I can subcontract maybe for plumbing. I can have somebody who's subcontracting to do plumbing, but then I remain the main contractor, and they are subbing under me. That means I'm still liable for any damage or any reputable damage that is going to happen along that building or along that tender. So they subcontract under me. That means I'm responsible for those people that I've hired to subcontract on some of the jobs that I can't do myself as the main contractor. So that's the difference. With the JV, we are equal partners and tendering for the same job with equal risk and equal profit margins.
I agree. Do you know a thing called teaming agreement? Is a teaming agreement and a JV the same thing?
I haven't, I'm not going to go much into teaming agreements because I haven't dealt much with them, but then I could find more research about it to find out how does one enter into a teaming agreement.
Yeah, it almost seems like a JV, but you're just teaming for particular terms and conditions, etc., right?
I doubt it has the same consequence as sorry, I doubt it has the same consequence as a JV. There might be similarities, however, it cannot be the same.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So let's get on to the deeper part of the conversations, right? What are some of the things to avoid, the mistakes to avoid? I know we talk about mistakes, but they still happen. Even if you talk about them, they still happen. You know, Pili, being on the ground, what are some of the mistakes to avoid in construction tenders that can either disqualify you, your contracts maybe be terminated, and or even not even get that, project. So what are the highlights, things that you can just mention today?
I think the one thing that I just
so informative. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. I think the one thing that I always advise against, don't go into things that you are not well versed in. Just because the tender is open does not mean it's for you. I think I will always reference back to obviously my environment within supply and distribution. You get people falling prey to a lot of things because you are now wanting to supply things that you do not understand the metrics of. You are not really understanding where they are coming from. You are not really understanding how market volatile they are. So you find yourself in really sticky situations where you are not pricing correctly because, for instance, there's a steel shortage, or you are not using the correct metrics in your tenders because you're not really understanding what length times breadth or what a cube is or what components come to that, whatever that you are supplying or trying to bid for. So I think getting into things that you really understand and well versed in will kind of curb all the other pricing failures, compliance failures, because you really understand what you are really going into and you've got a solid strategy going into it. So I think just once you figure out what you're doing, research it properly, then start tendering for it. At the end of the day, in as much as yes, tenders are open for all of us, but this is still a business. You need to be, you need to have the capacity, and the capability of doing it. Yeah.
Let me just take on a few questions. We have so many things to talk about, but I think people can help but ask questions. Why? Okay, someone say, where am I getting this thing now? Let's take Temba is saying, how do I conduct due diligence when conducting JV with a foreign company? Due diligence, you need to like make sure you do a proper well, firstly, sometimes you need to get the systems right? I find that entrepreneurs don't want to pay for services. There's telephonic banks once said, if you're not ready to pay for it, you're not ready to earn it. So at some point you must be able to know that it's going to cost me to run a business. It's going to cost me to get to a certain level. So if you really want a proper due diligence, sometimes pay the third-party service providers that can check things for you to make sure that it's valid. If you don't have the resources, make sure that you pay for such, right? It's part of running a business. It's part of running costs. It is what it is. Ultimately, it's an investment, and you can't go into it if you don't believe in it,
Yeah. Sorry, just also to add a few pointers for those who are just startup companies who cannot afford maybe the services of a third party to do the due diligence on their behalf. They can actually call the regulatory bodies of that company that regulates the company in that country and make calls on emails and find out if this company is really registered to do the construction work in that country and outside countries. So it is also a personal mission for people who want to get into JVs to also do their own diligence by calling the regulatory bodies and making their own research like that in the event they don't have money to hire a third party to do that on their behalf.
Got it. Thank you so much. So let's talk certifications. What are the certifications that are needed in construction for you to run a successful business? Besides the common, being part of membership of CIDBs, the important certifications that we need, especially that we're doing, green building, the future is going digital 3D designs and those kind of things. Pili, what can you share with us regarding certifications? Thank you, Temba.
Which part?
Sorry?
Which part? Like which part of it? I'll speak from the supply point of view. It's pretty basic. The thing is, which part? Like, what type of certifications are you meaning?
So like, I mean, construction. I want my company. Yes, all of that.
In terms of my product,
engineering, civil. Some of the important ones that people need to know that you have to be part of this, certifications or this association, at least for your company to be recognized as serious business entity.
Okay, the thing is, I don't want to speak on things that I'm not well versed in. So obviously, you have your industry bodies, your SICs for your engineers.
Those ones, those ones. Yes.
But with supply, it's pretty simple. Like and that's why it's such a low barrier market, because once you have a certified product, you've got from a reputable manufacturer, using obviously components of local content. You got it at the right price, and you are at the right BE level. It puts you in a pretty basic position for you to start. You know, so when it comes to certification from that part, it's really low barrier, and that's why people gush in. So from the maybe Dimakatso can talk about other certification, but from my side, it's pretty low barrier. So you don't really have to be part of any specific industry bodies like precisely, but obviously like you can be part of industry bodies like Chartered Institute of Building, just to kind of gain knowledge, like geosynthetics. Geosynthetics forum, like it depends also on what you are doing. So find industry bodies within your niche that are gonna kind of fuel and put back into what you are trying to supply or tender for. On my side,
no, that's perfect. That's what we need. So my other thing is, let's just say now, some of the questions I get, right, is people say, hi, Larata, got a tender, and then I was awarded, but then after I worked few months, then, you know, I'm told that, listen, we need to cancel this tender, you know, business change. And I think this is important for people who are in those shoes to know how they can go about, you know, challenging these type of things with procurement or even the organizations themselves, you know. A lot of times what I've seen though is there's issue of funding. Sometimes suppliers can't fund few projects, but in that case where you have an awarded tender and then Lord knows what happened, you are told also we withdraw award, you know. Dimakatso, do you want to share with us how can people challenge and go about, you know, inquiring regarding those kind of situations?
Yes, Lerato. So those situations unfortunately do happen, and a lot. And in circumstances where we find that there is conflict of interest. That means somebody has a conflict of interest somewhere, and a tender has just been awarded to you, and all of a sudden it has just disappeared without your knowledge, or however, you don't even know what happened. So nobody has even taken the courtesy to come back to you and explain why you have been taken out of the tender and it's no longer been given to you. So what happens is that people or companies need to understand that they've got a right. Firstly, they need to, in terms of PIA, which is the Information Act, they can request for information regarding the award of the tender. When was the tender awarded? What were the requirements, and what is the specific reason for the body that has issued out the tender to remove the winning company from the bid and giving it to somebody else? So they need to furnish you with reasons first. So they need to furnish you with written reasons as per the Information Act. You need to request that in writing before you can even decide to institute legal proceedings against that body. Because I know a lot of people behind their brains, they're like, I'm going to take them to court. You know, I'm going to rush to court. I'm going to get my lawyer behind this.
Okay, is there a CCMA? Sorry, is there a CCMA?
No, it depends. So not for this case, because this is a matter of jurisdiction, and we're talking about funds. So it depends if you're gonna take it to the what you can either go to arbitration, you can either go for mediation, or you can take it to the magistrate court, depending on the amount, or the high court. But if it's over 1 million tenders, obviously we'll go to the high court. So for people to, before you jump and go and institute legal proceedings against certain institutions that issued out that tender, understand that it's expensive. It's going to cost you more than you can even afford. And you're not even sure of the prospects of yourself winning that case. So to be safe, firstly, request for the information to see what were the disqualifying factors for you to be disqualified before you can be issued that tender. It can be possible that somebody bypassed the system and they awarded you that bid and you won. Yes, they said you won in the final scoring, but afterwards, information came to the body that is responsible for issuing out those tenders that you maybe are involved in a fraudulent case, there's an ongoing case against you, your BE certificate is not in order, you are not registered with COIDA, you're not registered with the NHBRC, the body does have rights to recall that tender. However, if you are sure as a body that you do qualify for that tender, then you can request in terms of PIA to get that information from the body, and they can have it given to you in writing so that you can approach your legal professional to assist you.
Yeah. Oh, what's happening? Is it me again?
Oh,
can you guys hear me?
Oh,
yeah, she got
cut
off,
off.
right?
I think she got cut
Oh,
off.
yeah. Jeez, man, such wealth of information. Where were you gonna get this for free?
Yeah.
My gosh, I'm empowered myself. I mean, guys, firstly, I know that being in procurement, we've seen these things happen. But what I also want to say is that sometimes you sign JVCC contracts, and a lot of these things are not on the contract, or they're not in the contract where it's written. So it is really your legal right to challenge when you are in such situations and say, procurement, you awarded me this tender, how all of a sudden now this thing is being recalled. You know, the reasons are not even there, they're vague, you don't know how to do, people are afraid, they don't want to be victimized. You know, that's also one of those things where you feel like you don't want to be victimized for challenging this type of things. But it is money, it's resources, it's your brand that's out there. And sometimes you have to fight a good fight, you know. But for me is the role of also accountability, you know. It's one of those things that you're saying, I'm accountable for my business and for my brand. And if the company really is an ethical type of business, they will really comply, you know. So it goes back to not reading contract terms and conditions, and people are just excited to sign. And even when things happen, they don't know that this thing favors me. So how then do I use this in my favor? You know what I mean? How does it use my favor for me to challenge this type of conversation? So Tandi, okay, let me just read her comment really quick. Guys, we have so many comments and also questions. We haven't gotten to the questions that I asked in advance. Ne? We need to go there. You can still hear me, right? Yes.
Yeah.
After the information search for any case law on similar transactions to know what you're up against. I agree. And that's the thing. That's what I'm saying, that sometimes we don't read up, we don't research, we don't check these things. And if you check some of the case laws, you can be well equipped, you know, for this. So while I think Dimakatso will probably try and get back on, Pelile, let's talk about what strategies to implement, you know, for one to set themselves apart. I really want to get this thing right, because this is where people are struggling. It's just the strategies to set yourself apart from being different, you know. Straightforward strategies.
Straightforward. The most, as a marketing professional, the most straightforward answer to that question is the best way to set yourself apart is to create value, value that has never existed before. So, like for instance, you get your Takealot. You know, like your Takealot has created some sort of value that warrants you shopping at just Takealot, because you literally get everything in one online store. You know, something that was not really done before, or not done in that magnitude. So, understanding the business and where you are, the market of where you are, and then and then creating value around. Okay, let's I'm trying to use a construction example without exposing anybody. Okay, the big red company, I don't know how to without mentioning companies, but like a lot of
don't mention people's names.
Yeah, I don't want to be mentioning people's names, but a lot of people that I work with in construction are always asking, like, come on, dude, like I build buildings and I do drains, like how can I make that marketable, you know? But it's not just it's not in what you do, it's really in how you do it. So I can't really devise what you are doing, but as soon as you figure out, it's okay, cool, I'm here, it's good, it's nice, sharp, who else is doing it?
Yeah.
Okay, there are 4 or 5 other people doing it. What is it based on? Is it marginalized against price, or is it marginalized against B level? Is it marginalized against relationships? So what is it about that? And then if it's a click that is based on relationship, then obviously figure out what is your communication messages. What are they saying in order to be able to build those. Hello, Dimakatso.
Is she back on?
Hi
Yeah,
guys, can you hear me? Am I back
yes,
on?
You can.
Yes, you are back on. You are back on.
Apologies for that. I don't know who keeps interrupting me by calling me when I'm live. Apologies for that.
That's easy. Okay, no, you are back on. Just before you left, I was just saying, wow, such valuable information given just for free, you know, which is so amazing. So yeah, I don't know. On my screen is still freezed, but listen, as long as I can hear you, I'm fine. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, boy,
Yeah, I can see you and I can hear you.
Awesome. Billy, are you done with your point?
Yeah, and also it's okay. Yeah. Okay, let's wrap it there. And then we'll carry on in the next question.
Okay.
I see Nono asked a question here. How do you gain experience in order to become well versed in something? Oh, that is like the number one question like a lot of people ask. Can you guys hear me? Dimakatso?
Yeah. Read it again. What did she ask?
She asked, how do you gain the experience in order to become well versed in something?
There's a background noise happening somewhere. How do you get vested in what?
How do you gain the experience in order to become well versed? I think she was asking a question following my comment earlier. When I was saying you need to be able to do things that you are well versed in. From the supply side, I say in order when I say being well versed in something, I mean if you're going to be supplying a product and you don't have the data sheet for that product, then you are not well versed in it. Because then you won't be able to manipulate the metrics in order to come out with certain quantities. So like, for instance, if you are supplying pipes and you are not really well versed in the way those metrics work, then when a tender comes through and it says, we need this, the linear meter, whatever, and you don't really understand the metrics behind it, then it's not going to be easy for you to be competitive and manipulate the price per meter, price per linear meter, price per cube, you know. So it's very important, and that's why I say be well versed in whatever that you are doing. When it comes to the contracting side, you are not going to wake up, like, you can't expect people to trust you with building a whole flat, like, for instance, if you have not done a drain, you know. So you have to be able to start somewhere. And the crappy thing is with construction is that a lot of people want to start and they want to start big. They want to, hey, it's gonna be nice, we're gonna be tendering, it's gonna be great, you know. But you have to accept that to some degree you're gonna be having to be doing stuff for free. That's how you earn your stripes. And that's how you become well versed. Those people that don't want to be sharing that information, if you are doing it for free, you will get something out of it. I don't know if you getting what I mean. So find avenues where you can extract. Understand where you're going, and then find avenues where you can extract, basically, to keep it there.
Lerato, can I add something on that?
Yes.
For the lady who just inquired now, especially about startups, how they can be well versed in something that they want to venture into. It's also important right now to say, for somebody who's starting up who does not have the financial muscles to get into tender for the big tenders and those big opportunities. You know, we've got your government EPW programs. Guys, you must get out there, volunteer your services, show yourself into those people who are handling those EPW services, what you can do. They are busy fixing our roads. We see them every day with those gearings, the gear that they put on EPW projects. Get involved in that, because you don't have the financial muscles right now as a startup somebody, but you do have those resources within government that you can go and say, I can offer this type of services. Yes.
Yeah. Sure, ladies, thank you so much. This is quite informative. And I'm sure and I'm hoping that people are making notes. We will save the live. I've had some people who are asking, please save the live. We'll definitely save the live. I also do want to say this, that sometimes don't sit behind the laptop. I've also advised some of the mentees that I have coaching. If I don't sit behind the laptop and hoping that you'll get an attention. There are those relationships that you need to go further than waiting and responding, to a tender or an RFQ to grow. Seek to know, especially for private sector, we are more open towards relationships than it is with government. Seek to know who is the business that supports this, who is the buyer. Can I introduce my company? You may knock on 10 doors, but 2 might open. If you're going to connect on LinkedIn, for example, you don't just connect, hi, here's my profile. Chances are someone reading that. We have lots of those ones that you get, so I might not even read it, right? Because of habit. But if you seek to understand the person more, what they do as a business, can I show you what I do? Who's your BEE specialist? What are opportunities for enterprise development? Inquire and then showcase yourself. Those are other ways to knock on doors that you have more probability of even being listened to. I've seen companies that have done that, and today they are a client, and they've grown because ultimately it's relationship. People remember faces versus a company name. Like part of being a brand is who is this person. So yes, you're right, Jacqueline. It is networking. So guys, we're going to get into the question and answer session, which is what I had posted. Just before we get onto there, there's something else also really important that I want to talk about, which before Dimakatso just dropped off, okay, in terms of subcontracting. Let's talk about subcontracting. I get a tender and then I subcontract someone who's actually my main contractor in a way. I know nothing about the project. I have very little knowledge, and the tender says subcontract 30% of the contract. We can support that as procurement, but actually the person that does the work, it's the opposite. Isn't it? It's the opposite. And it's I'm bringing a project, so and then tomorrow you're not invited, and then you wonder, which is some of the mistakes, right? But be that as it may, I want to mention something. Different departments for government, municipalities, even private sector, evaluate tenders differently. So if you subcontract and then let's say you're a level 2 or a level 1, and then you have someone that's subcontracting who's a level 4 BEE or level 3, you will be at a disadvantage when procurement does tender evaluations because we're not getting the same benefit of the spend. Versus someone who comes in 100% and say, I'm a 51% black owned, 30% black woman ownership. Therefore, so my spend will be split, right? 30% of it is going to a level 4, and then the other bit is going to this. So those are some of the things to consider, that subcontract it properly. And before you even submit the bid, check who's the BE level of the person. Is it equal or higher? I know some of the state-owned companies also have the policy that you only deal with level 1 and 2, even with subcontractors, that's the same, So for Dimakatso, you're still there, right? You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Loretta. I'm very much here.
Okay. So in terms of subcontracting, if a relationship goes sour during the service delivery or delivering a service, and the relationship has gone bad, okay, what is it that people can do to really keep them accountable? Because now they're the face of the client, and we have contracted with the main contractor, say we need to deliver this when these are the SLAs, but now you find that there's no people coming on site, there's project delays, how can they challenge and make sure?
Oh, even before we go into the issue of challenging, Lerato, the first issue of who do you subcontract? We go back, takes us back to the issue of due diligence.
Oh, I'm sorry, David.
Who do you subcontract? Let's start there. Does the company you are subcontracting in a financial capability? Does they own the financial? Do they have the resources to actually produce the kind of work that you're subcontracting them to do? So it's a difficult situation and an unfortunate one for the main contractor, because that means you will take the risk that is associated with that subcontractor not completing the job in time, unfortunately for the bidder, they will not go directly to sue the subcontractor, because remember, the subcontractor is subcontracting under the main contractor. So that means you take the whole risk as a main contractor. It is important, and I will stress this enough. It is important that you do your due diligence in terms of who you subcontract. Do your due diligence. Make sure that they've got, if you have to go to an extent of checking their financial records, you have to go do that. You have to check their financial records. You have to check their previous work. You have to check their legal compliance, whether with the bodies they are associated with. They can, even reference checking. Call reference wherever they have worked before and find out if it is indeed true they can do the job which you are subcontracting for. Because at some case, it will be a litigious matter. You will have to go up and down through arbitration, mediation, or even court, which will take a long time to resolve. So to avoid you even going to court, we as legal professionals love it when you guys come to us and give us jobs, because we want to represent you to court, you know.
Because of money.
But it's also advisable that you do avoid us, because our costs and our fees are too high. And by the end of your project, you might find that you've paid attorney or advocate fees that are so high that you don't even realize your profit. So by all means, just try to avoid subcontracting people who are not, or who have never done that kind of job that you're contracting. Just be on the safe and lookout.
Thank you so much. I agree with that. Are there any particular contracts one needs to look into and also need to interpret correctly? Yeah.
Yes. So for people who can't also afford attorneys who can draft proper contracts with clauses that will specifically safeguard them in terms of subcontracting, you've got a template that is offered for you at your convenience at the NHBRC. So you see, those are some of the specs of you being affiliated with the NHBRC and registering, because now they give you, their legal services provide you with a template that you can use as a startup, that you can use to enter into subcontracting, enter into JVs, and enter into agreements. So it is a template that covers you as a main contractor and covers your subcontractors as well. So for people who can afford a lawyer or an attorney, it's advisable that they do register with the NHBRC. They do offer that template for you to use and contract with that. It's part of your packages as having registered with the body.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much. Ladies, let's get on to the questions, because we haven't even started with the questions that we the one that we asked the people to send us in advance so we can be ready and have more structure, because we are now 1 hour into the conversation. So let's talk about funding. Pili, maybe you can assist us with this one. Is there any funding for startups in construction?
You have your basic ones, your NYDA, your CEDAs, your sectors, your DTI. I know here in KZN, we have a KZN growth fund. And then like some suppliers also use purchase orders as collateral in order to get certain loans. So, but the conversation around funding is something that is pivotal, and I'm glad that we're having this, because we are not really getting the resources that we need. Because even like when you go to your CEDAs and your sectors, like the paperwork that you have to go through, the financials, like you get tired even before, and you're just like, you know what, actually, like it's all right, you know. And most of us, like for instance me, I can't really be an advocate for funding. And if there's someone in this live that knows information about funding, something that we're not covering, please chip in. Because like, for instance, with me, a lot of people ask me, okay, cool, so how am I going to get into supply? Because I need to get money to get this in order for me to supply. And I say there are different ways to skin a cat. You know, like you can start off as an agent, you know, like there's a difference between a distributor and a supplier and an agent. That's why there are those different variations. So you can start from the agent point of view, where you are just literally saying, I know a client or a customer that needs this good, so I would like a commission. Okay, So now you're an agent. You're not really necessarily using any money, but you are facilitating a certain transaction between two entities, right? So they will kind of give you a commission. And then we'll take it to the next step where you say, okay, cool. So now I'm actually over being your supplier. So your agent. So now I would like to get the stuff straight from you, then kind of put my margin or my markup, and then sell it to the end customer. So now you've taken it to the next phase, and obviously then you would have generated demand. Then you would have established those relationships. So that's the next phase. So now with those little, you are collecting those little monies. The third part would be, okay, cool. So now I want to be a distributor. Like, for instance, I'm a distributor. I'm not necessarily a supplier. I'm a distributor because I will take the product, house it, market it, then distribute it, you know? So it sometimes I always suggest don't be disheartened by the fact that you are not necessarily getting funding, but try and find different avenues. Some people use their pensions to fund their startups, guys. You know, I'm not saying use your pension now, but I'm saying, you know, like don't say that I'm chilling here and I can't do anything because I'm not really getting funding. I'm not sure if Itala Bank still does this, but they used to use purchase orders. And then they kind of loan you the money to kind of, you know, to get the materials. So there are different ways before we just dive into funding and say, oh no, we're not getting anything. I think finding different avenues to skin that cat to create that transaction, I think is probably the best way to enter it. But I don't, basically from my side, I don't,
Basically, that's what it is. And I also find that with funding, funders need you to raise some form of funds, because who's taking on the bigger risk? You know, it's also quantified that the risk is more with the funder than it is with you, because really you've got nothing to lose. You're an entity. If all goes bad, you are liquidated, and the risk is on the funder. And that's why also
it's like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why also you find that the interest that you pay back, it's so exorbitant because of the risk, you know. So some to mitigate and to minimize the risk is to say, come up with 20% and let's see what is it that you're doing. You know, you have to get yourself started, start up. It's quite important. You can't sit and wait and say there's no funding.
Yeah.
One of my mentors actually said this to me, that no one will let go of a good deal, right? So all the funders are looking for a good deal. If it's a really good deal, you can even get 10 million now, you know? So also evaluate, is this a worthwhile deal before I even go for funders and say, hey, look at me, this is what I need, you know? So
but even that good deal, Lerato, just to add on that, has to have some sort of show reel and reference to it. So that's why it's important for you to just get started, you know, in order for you to use that as a reference or as a base in order to become that great deal, you know?
Yes. Okay. The other person has asked, what is the role of a head of commercial in construction?
I've worked with a lot of head of commercials. So like within the corporate, it depends on the corporate structure of that business. So I normally fell under marketing. So what will basically happen is, this is an entity, right? So let's say we are selling potatoes. So the commercial manager basically is the one that is fostering those relationships, that is understanding what the market is like and how volatile it is in order to create to come up with price strategies for it, and is kind of he's like the head of all the sales guys. So the sales guys will kind of report back all that information, and they will kind of create a strategy in order to go forward. So they will basically say, okay, cool. So apples, it is not season right. It's not apple season right now. What are the customers wanting? What can we give them within our product offering in order to keep them within our organization? Okay, cool. It's avocado, so let's start. So that's what they basically do, and then they will speak to marketing and say, okay, cool. This is where the shortage is right now. So can you please market this? So the head of commercial is basically the glorified sales guy that sits in his office and gets all the information from all the salespeople, create strategies in order to kind of strengthen the sales and the marketing, basically.
basically. Okay.
Yeah.
No, got it. The other question, is it advisable to work into sites and ask subcontracting directly on the site? That's funny. Well, you laughed. Is it funny?
Do you want me to answer that?
I mean, maybe let's give Dimakatso a chance.
Oh,
right.
okay.
From a proper
legal
corporate governance, is
okay.
it right?
So Loretta, I want you to repeat the question again so that I can hear what
Let me
the person is
repeat.
actually
It
asking.
says, is it advisable to work into sites and ask for subcontracting directly on site?
Why would you be working on a site and then a request for subcontracting when you're already on site? For me, it doesn't make sense. You are afforded a tender and you're already on site. You have started the proceedings of working or building or whatever the tender requirements were, and you're already working, and now you realize, oops, I don't have the certificate to be a plumber or to issue out finishings or whatever it is that you're doing on that building. And then now it only becomes aware to you at that moment that you need the services of a plumber, of a registered plumber. Specifically registered, guys. Everybody must be registered that you work with. So now you will have to unfortunately halt the services on site. Report to the construction manager that you are not qualified to do a certain portion of the work and that you will require the services of that person. And then within that moment, then the services will have to be halted for in the interim until you appoint that person. You enter into contract.
That's what exactly. That's why everything goes wrong.
Don't allow anybody to come into site without a proper contract. The dangers of that is you finding yourself in a litigious battle if they've ever done something wrong on site and they don't have proper contract. Then which leg will you have to stand on to go and litigate, because you are working with an anonymous. This person is not known. You do not have a contract with them in place. You can't even challenge them in court. On what ground? On what basis? Because I don't have a contract with you. It's a verbal contract. So it's your word against my word in court. It can go either way. You don't want to find yourself in such a situation. Rather, contract. Contract.
Contract. Your life is a contract. I want to also add on to that point is, if you are contracted directly with the client, you have taken full accountability and responsibility, and the liability is with you. So even the subcontractor that you get on site, they start messing up and they start doing something that is not right and something is not compliant, right? The accountability and liability is with you, with the client. So you have to pay the damages. You have to be the one on the rate of that. You understand? So you take even more risk than yes.
So that's also, before I even forgot, another scenario in terms of that question, maybe for the lady or the gentleman who asked that question, is if you find yourself that you're already working with a subcontractor that had a contract in place, however, the services are not completed, but the part that the service provider has contracted for is complete, then you allow them to continue working without renewing the contract. The person, that the subcontractor is still working without a contract, and it's highly prohibited. They are not allowed to work without a contract. So if the contract has lapsed or come to an end, immediately if you realize that before 2 months or 3 months before the completion of the project, the services will not be completed in time, start entering into a renewal negotiation with that subcontractor to say that we need to extend your contract for a certain period until we are completed. Because if you allow them to work after the contract has lapsed, maybe the contract is for 3 or 2 months, after it had lapsed and you did not renew it, that means they are working without a contract and you will not have a leg to stand on if everything goes sour. So do ensure that you renew your contract on time, even if it's for 3 days or 4 days. A lot can happen in hours.
A lot can happen, and this also touches on imagine someone falling on site, and then the subcontractor doesn't have letter of good standing, who also is taking on that risk, you know? So anything can happen in construction, guys. So let's get into the next question. We spoke about how to get tenders. That's fine. And one is asking, how can one learn about quotation for construction, like calculations? I guess someone who doesn't have a QS, quantity surveyor, who's costing for them.
Yeah.
In the absence of having a QS, how can one learn about the calculations?
Yeah, if the thing is, it also depends on which calculations. Are they talking about just the length times breadth? Are they talking about cubes? Are they talking about it all depends, you know. If you're not going to go to school for it, then it's diving into it. Data sheets will be your best friends. Data sheets will be your best friend. Okay. Because then you'll be able to and Google, guys, data sheets and Google, and you'll be fine. Some people, I get sometimes people that are saying, oh my God, I can't, how do I calculate a square meter, you know, like, because there are some of us didn't do maths, you know, so it becomes very difficult for some people. So Google is your friend. They are sorry,
Philly.
Yeah.
I think, you know, also to add on your point, to mention that benchmarking, it's also allowed in the construction industry. People can benchmark to other companies. So if you want a smart way of how to price for certain things, you can ask other service providers without you actually giving out information that you are looking at for yourself. You can act as if like you are looking for a quotation for something, and then ask these different entities and find out how they could price. And then that's how you find it's called price benchmarking. That's how you can use it to your advantage.
But isn't that cheating?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. So I don't like that one. Because it exposes people to price wars, the back and forth. Yes, people do it because you want to kind of, as it's called, benchmarking. But you want to get a gauge of what the market is pricing. But you always have to, no, I don't like that one. That benchmarking one.
Yeah, no, there's a good way to benchmark. Yeah, no, there's a good way to benchmark. Not going and copying and then acting. Others is going to also work against you because you're not quantifying and validating that information is correctly, right? Ultimately, you have to pay for that. Service.
But for also, guys, this is for somebody who does not afford the services of a QS, and for somebody who is new and want to understand the disadvantage of you guys going into benchmarking prices. But I promise you, it's a practice. It's practice in the industry, and people do that often than you would even know. And
really?
It works for some, and it won't work for others.
Well, I suppose
but you'd find, you know why? Sometimes you'd find that you are benchmarking from the wrong person. That's the problem.
Oh yes.
Yeah, you are benchmarking over someone that is just putting a price because it's nice, you know. And now you've gone and benchmarked your whole pricing strategy on it, and then it becomes a mess. So you have to be careful. How you do it.
And ultimately, you know what? You can't run a business you don't understand. You have to understand about your business, you know, especially if you're still building it. There'll come a time where you'll hire people and all of that, but get some basic understanding about your business and what needs to happen and how. There's also a reliance of being the middle person. There's things that need you to be, you know, a supply, like you said. There's things that need you to know some things about your business, right? So let me go into the next question. How to secure a tender as new company with no experience? Let me say something from a procurement perspective. You generally have personal experience, right? It also probably works also with like legal firms. You have someone who is, they experience themselves into doing something, and then they start a company, and then you need to start looking for jobs, right? For me, is, are you solving a problem? It goes back to what problem are you solving? People will buy into solving a problem. It's easier to grow your business if you have a solution for issues, right? Or for market. And in that way, you're at least you have a one-step foot into growing yourself, you know? And really growing rigorous about your marketing and showing up as providing that particular service or product. Do you understand? So if you're starting from the ground zero, use your acquired experience to work for you and project yourself as such. And you know what? It's like going back to sales. People buy into what you're selling. How are you positioning yourself and selling your knowledge and your experience and qualifications, even if your entity is only started this year? Because that also there's a variation to that. It's like being incorporated, Dimakatso, right? In legal, you can be 20 years as a experience, but then the company gets incorporated later on.
I beg your pardon? I didn't understand that part.
I'm saying, as a lawyer, you can have 20 years of experience, but then your business can only get incorporated after maybe this year. But that doesn't mean your 20 years of experience has gone down the drain.
Oh, yes. So what happens is people did take different routes, especially in the legal industry. So you can have 20 years experience maybe of working in corporate and working as a legal consultant or whatever that you decide. And then later on only decide to have your company, what do you call your legal firm. And then having your legal firm, you can incorporate it anytime as long as it's dealing specifically with the kind of experience that you have been working through, either through other firms and then through corporations, whatever industry or choice of law you decided to venture into, then you can now incorporate it into your own law firm and operate under that.
Right. Sure. We are running out of time because we don't want to keep people here for too long, but it's such a good conversation that can go on and on and on. Let me read a question, I suppose, from Tabelo. What is the easy way to approach CFO of construction if you want to sub and you see the need for the service? So basically a way to approach a CFO.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not advisable to even approach the CFO because you've got, for you, the best shot you have is to
oh, is it her?
Can you hear me, guys?
Yes,
we can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
yes. So the best thing that Tabang can do, I don't know if it's Tabang or it's Tabo, the one who asked the question, is to approach the main contractor is your gateway into subcontracting. So don't even approach the CFO, even if you see a need, because there's a main contractor that's already been appointed. So your good shot at you entering there and offering your services, sell yourself to the main contractor. My apologies. I don't know who keeps calling me when I'm busy or online here. Yes.
No worries.
Just to add a little bit on that, Dima, it's also understand the project ecosystem. You don't want to be going into certain projects and piss off people by not understanding that. Why would you go and talk to my boss's boss about something that I was supposed to identify? You really pissed me off. You know, so
it's also governance.
Also, like you being eager and you understand and you wanting to be part of it, also shouldn't be pissing off the people that are in that structure. So understand the structure first, and then kind of figure out your way around it.
Yeah, that also poses another risk on procurement, where it's like you're not following procurement protocol and governance. So there's a governance that it's also at play. So you need to follow the right channels before you just go into it. And the CFO doesn't really make decisions about these things. There are forums, there's procurement for these kind of things to follow through. Okay, Nozi Sibia, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Yes, you missed first part of the live. We will save this live for everyone to get to just go back and catch up. Sure, we're gonna end in a few minutes. Let me just get on to a few more questions, then we'll be done. I would like to ask, so I'm currently waiting for my CIDB grade 2. So can one bid for a tender that specifically requires grade 2 CIDB with work references, proving that I have worked on tenders above 150K? The answer is yes. Did you get that, Billy? Can you bid? Yes, the answer is yes. Simple, in simple terms. Ne? And then another question, it's one I think is a startup. Advise on market research of product I want to research. Google is a simple market research.
Yeah, Google is your friend, but also I always say find the competition.
Yeah.
If there's a product that you want to supply or you want to kind of trade with or in, find the competition. The competition will that's when the competition is going to be your friend, because then you'll be able to kind of get a feel of what it is and find the different data sheets, the different brochures, and then kind of compare and then kind of devise your own based on that. That's what I'd say.
All right. Thank you so much. The other one is decent markup for if you want to charge for building material. I did talk about markup earlier on. You wanna maybe specify if on building material markup that someone can look at?
No, I think it's plus minus the same. It all depends.
Yeah, 15-20%.
The thing is with building material, it's a bit easier because you can always stretch your price. You're not really, we were talking about this earlier, you're not really losing anything, you know. So as long as your cost price, you've got your cost price covered, whatever you make after that is surplus. And obviously, if you're still starting out, you want to kind of keep it as slim as possible. So we'll keep it on your 10 to 15s. On profit. So yeah, you keep it there, and then with margin it would be different. It depends. It depends on how you want to go into it. But as you were saying, 15 to 20 is cream.
Yeah.
Markup that is not margin. Markup.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, guys, we can go on and on and on, but time is not on our side. Wow, we have gotten to the end of our conversation. I think the other questions, we've already spoken about these things. So if you can, please go back to the live. We will save it, and it will probably also be published in our YouTube channel. So let's talk about the future in the 5 minutes that we have. The future of construction. What is it that you can look forward to? I know that we are doing 3D, robotics, AI, technology. How can people better prepare themselves for yes, Pili, I know you work a lot with these things. What is it that you can look forward to, and in terms of being prepared for, you know,
for the future?
Yeah.
One, the notion of that the market is dead. It's not dead. Let's start there. Yeah. Number two, let's stop looking at construction from just a South African perspective. It has to be from an African. As Africa, we need in the next 15 to 20 years, we need to have built just enough buildings as Europe, and they had 200 years to do it. So there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of opportunity to be innovative. We've got BIM, A3D, AI, robotics. You know, we really need to let's take out the notion of just construction being it's all here in the hands, and figure out what are we doing in the future. But also, I think my last point, just to close it, I think let's pass on information, so we'll be able to equip the 2,000 that are going to come into the industry, equip them with good skills in order to take our industry to the next level. So our work and what we're doing here is not in vain. We've set a great foundation, but if we're not teaching the young ones to what to do with what we have, then everything that we are doing is in vain.
That's true. And I mean, also catching up with the trends, and I mean, everything else is evolving. We are probably going to enter in fifth industrial revolution, construction 4.0, you know, so nothing just comes to an end. I don't think it is saturated, like you said, to your point, but it's a matter of how do you prepare yourself for 10 years? What does construction look like for you in 15 years? And start working towards those years, because then at that point, it will be a massive need, and you had already tapped in earlier. So you must tap in now into that wave of where Africa is going with the construction field and your 3Ds and everything else, AI, etc. Dimakatso?
Yes.
You're still there with us. Any thoughts just before we end our conversation?
Just on a last note, and also to add on what Pili just said, as an advice also to your viewers and everyone who is going to see this live feed afterwards, it's very important that you, whether any kind of contract that you want to enter into, because I'm the contracts guru here among the three of you guys, so it's good for me to speak on that. And as also a founder of Bopiloki Contract, which was its main purpose was to advise people that your life is a contract. Everything that you do, whether for business, for household, anything, we're talking contracts. So you get the contractual part right, everything about your life goes smoothly. You get one step wrong, then you are in the loop. You're going to face me and another of my colleagues in a court of law battling against your assets. Construction, it's not for the faint-hearted. Go into the business knowing very well that you have a passion for it. You have the patience to wait, because sometimes money does not come today. You will do the work and money will come in later. Avoid getting into the business because of money. Get into the business because you've got a passion for it. Now, the second part of it, get into the business with the knowledge of it. Seek as much knowledge as you have. Volunteer if you have to. Don't rush into the making money business schemes. It is not for you. Thirdly, find yourself an affordable lawyer. Get yourself a young DK that can offer legal advice while you're still starting out.
What's your handle? What's your handle?
It depends on the scale of the work you are hiring me to do. So it also depends on that. My affordability will have to go with the kind of work that you're contracting me to do. But you see, a lot of people don't understand the work of lawyers or attorneys or advocates until you are in a position where you don't have a choice, but you need one. So better yet, prepare yourself. Get one early. Get right advices before you can do anything. Get yourself a lawyer.
Sure. People are saying thank you so much for the conversation today. It was very informative. Thank you so much for being part of our conversation as well. We will save the live. Ladies, you've been amazing, absolutely outstanding. Thank you for your time and your information. It really is not going down the drain. I appreciate this type of conversation because we help people. Sometimes you just need to know something to do something right, you know? So it is all about that. And my last words is read tender documents, guys. Everything else, it's there. If you struggle, do not hesitate to call the buyer. People are open to at least explain if you don't understand. And more so, don't sign a contract without understanding what are you signing, you know?
Read.
Yeah. All right. Good night and cheers, everybody. We'll save this live. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorato. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorato.
Cheers. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.